This is my assignment 16.2 on techniques used by a coach to improve performance. I have chosen 3 aspects of goal setting, of techniques used. The first one is goal setting. It is used to increase an individual's commitment towards achieving a personal goal and it's a dual decision between the client and the coach. So there's a negotiation involved and there's no imposition. It's a dual decision. They can be specific with the individual and relating to the context of their age, the ability, or the event. Whether it's a team or an individual target needs to be identified. So if they're part of a team sport, then it needs to be a team target or an individual target within the team, or a whole team target. There are different types of goals: primary and secondary goals. Performance goals could be for the end of season or session or training, depending on that performance. Outcome goals are for a win or a position for the desired end result. Process goals, to be able to master something or something that could be controlled. And all different types of and kinds of goals matter, whether they're small or large. The timescale needs to be determined, like they need to have a set timescale when to achieve the goal by, otherwise it won't progress or be achieved. It all needs to fit into the SMART criteria, so it needs to be specific, measurable, agreed, realistic, and time bound. So as long as all those parts have been clasped, then the target will be achieved. So they need to be specific, measurable, accepted. So they need to be goals that need to be agreed between the coach and the performer. They need to be realistic yet challenging, and the date needs to be set when the goal needs to be done by. There are 2 more other aspects of the SMART target called SMARTER, which means they need to be exciting, so the goal motivates the individual, and recording, so the goal and the progress is recorded so that it's like a hard copy. There are negatives and positives and negatives to this. It's effective for motivation, so it gives them something tangible or non-tangible to work towards. It gives them a clear purpose to help them value their improvement and increase the engagement and confidence between the client and the coach. And it gives them a hard copy of what they want to achieve rather than just talked about, it's written down. It's ineffective because there could be a conflict of opinion, so the difference in the player and the coach that the goal sets them within a team or whatever. So if you work too hard on one aspect, you can also forget about other aspects which could hinder performance. For example, if you wanted to improve strength and didn't do cardiovascular training, then performance may decrease. So as long as there's a balance, it should be okay. If they didn't reach their time scale, it can be quite demotivating for the performer, and therefore they don't want to complete their goal, they want to stop there. Barriers can come into it that are maybe out of your control, for example, injury, and they can't be helped, and they can reduce the time that the target is achieved in. It's also ineffective if there's too many goals and they're not balanced, like there's not a balance of goals. Or if they're too far away. So if the time scale is too ahead in the future, then the performer might get bored and might not want to achieve that goal because they might have a different goal by that point. But other than that, it's great for motivation to give them a clear purpose. The next one is demonstration. It's giving people a mental image of what they need to learn. So the criteria for this is that they need to be clear, they need to have high volume to make sure that everyone can hear them, especially if they're in a large group. They need to make sure they have the knowledge, even though they can demonstrate the skill, they still need to have knowledge. They need to have clarity, and repetitions are also good for learners, especially visual learners. And even if they're not just verbal demonstrations, they're all silent demonstrations. So if say for example, you pause and make them watch you, so you're not talking and performing at the same time, because that can be quite hard for some different learners. To go from different speeds and different angles as well, to make sure that they understand from all different angles, even if they're sitting down. Questions should also be asked, and make sure that it's in performance context, so that it's relevant to that skill and sport. To make sure that everyone can see is also really important. It's effective for visual learners because it helps prevent misunderstanding. It helps to show the exact technique that needs to be used. Over-exaggerating can also help because it helps them to understand what they could be doing wrong, or what they can try and do to help them, show them what not to do as well. It can also help to show athletes images or videos. So if you show the performer an athlete or a video example of that skill, then that can really help too. It's good for large groups because you can have cognitive learners in that group, or beginners or more autonomous learners. There's all different types in a group. You could never have the same type. So, and it also conveys more than words. So if you can demonstrate something, it's sometimes easier to convey that than it is to explain it. Some skill, although on the other hand, it can be ineffective because some skills are hard to demonstrate. Therefore, it's hard for quick, fast movements such as swimming. It's also bad if the demonstration is wrong, and then bad habits can be put into place. And for autonomous learners, if they already know the skills, then they don't need to be shown. So it's depending on the context or the group. And if it's not repeated, then it can lead to lack of learning or learning it wrong, which can be bad. The next technique is profiling. Profiling requires a criteria that matters to the event, sport, or individual skills within the criteria. So it's something that's used to get an idea about the individual and what intervention is needed. It helps to monitor changes over time to maximise the athlete's motivation and adherence to the programme. And it's done by players and coaches so they can compare and discuss their data and make sure it's negotiated and monitored. It can be done through the computer so that it's a visual representation of their improvement, and which can be really motivating to see gradual progress or not seeing any progress. It's effective because it's clear and it's easy to communicate the ideas because it's all visual, so it's you don't have to explain much, it's just shown that you're going to get improved more and more and more. So if you have like a current profile, it's set so that you can just keep adding data to it that you're improving. So say you do, say for a footballer, they do 10 shots in a game, 10 goals in a game, and then the next week they do 15, then it will show that the graph will then increase each time. It may be ineffective because it's subjective and there's only one opinion, so it may make you have a negative self-view. If you're having a bad week or a bad session, it may not show your true potential. It may also be a risk if your coach grades you lower than you thought you were, so it can be quite demoralising in that way if you feel that way. Also, if you're with the challenge, if the challenge to do better each week can be a problem because you need to just make sure that you're cautious so that they're not pushing themselves too hard to just beat their last week's score, because it won't help them improve. And then it becomes competitive, but too much. Conflict of opinion again between the coach and the individual can cause problems, just due to lack of different views or different ways that they want to do it. And that's it for techniques used by coaches to improve the performance of a player.